Okay. It's all working. Awesome. Hi, folks. Chris Marz here. So we're doing something a little different today. As you can see, I'm actually using a webcam to record this, which I normally don't do. Today we're doing a narrative reading. And in the past, as you've probably known, narrative readings, I don't usually show my face. I usually just do the recording, and that's it. I decided to do it a little differently today just to see how it plays out. You guys can let me know if you want to do this, if you want me to keep doing this in the future or not. Totally cool. Either way goes well with me. But I thought I'd just try something different to see how it plays. Anyway, today's narrative reading, we are actually doing one of my favorites. I was really excited to actually receive this request, and I got it from one of my dear friends. My friend Paige asked me to do The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe. This is going to be really fun. Before we get into it, though, let's get the mooding right. It's Edgar Allan Poe. We can't have it done right otherwise. 1 second. Yes, there we go. That's better. It's a little darker now. That's the way it should be. Alright. So, let's get right into it. I'm going to take a quick drink here. Alrighty. Are you all warm and comfortable? Good. Let's begin. The Cask of Amontillado by Edgar Allan Poe, 1846. The 1,000 injuries of Fortuna I had borne as best I could, but when he ventured upon insult, I vowed revenge. You, who so well know the nature of my soul, will not suppose, however, that gave utterance to a threat. At length, I would be avenged. This was a point definitely settled, but the very definitiveness with which it was resolved precluded the idea of risk. I must not only punish, but punish with impunity. A wrong is unredressed when retribution overtakes its redresser. It is equally unredressed when the avenger fails to make himself felt as such to him who has done the wrong. It must be understood that neither by word nor deed had I given Fortuna cause to doubt my goodwill. I continued, as was to smile in his face, and he did not perceive that to smile now was at the thought of his immolation. He had a weak point, this Fortuna, although in other regards he was a man to be respected, even feared. He prided himself on his connoisseurship in wine. Few Italians have the true Fortusa spirit. For the most part, their enthusiasm is adopted to suit the time and opportunity to practice imposture upon the British and Australian millionaires. In painting and Germany, Fortuna, like his countrymen, was a quack. But in the matter of old wines, he was sincere. In this respect, I did not differ from him materially. I was skillful in the Italian villages, and bought largely whenever I could. It was about dusk one evening, during the supreme madness of the carnival season, that I encountered my friend. He accosted me with excessive warmth, for he had been drinking much. The man wore motley. He had on a tight-fitting party-strip dress, and his head was surmounted by the conical cap and bells. I was so pleased to see him that I should never have done wrong wringing his hand. I said to him, "My dear Fortuna, you are luckily met. How remarkable well you are looking today. But I received a pipe of what passes for Amontillado, and I have my doubts."
"How?" he said. "Amontillado? A pipe? Impossible! In the middle of the carnival."
"I have my doubts," I replied, "and I was silly enough to pay the full Amontillado price without consulting you in the matter. You were not to be found, and I was fearful of losing a bargain."
"Amontillado?"
"I have my doubts."
"Amontillado!"
"And I must satisfy them."
"Amontillado!"
As you are engaged, I am on my way to see Lucrez. If anyone has critical churn, it is he. He will tell me,
Lucrez cannot tell Amontillado from sherry.
And yet some fools will have it that his taste is a match for your own.
Come, let us go.
Whither?
To your vaults.
My friend, no. I will not impose upon your good nature. I perceive you have an engagement. Lucrez...
I have no engagement. Come.
My friend, no. It is not the engagement, but the severe cold which I perceive you are afflicted. The vaults are insufferably damp. They are encrusted with nitrate.
Let us go nonetheless. The cold is merely nothing. Amontillado, you have been imposed upon. And as for Lucrez, he cannot distinguish sherry from Amontillado.
Thus speaking, Fortuna possessed himself of my arm, and putting on a mask of black silk, and drawing a rocaille closely about my person, I suffered him to hurry me to my palazzo. There were no attendants at my home. They had been absconded to make merry in honor of the time. I told them that I should not return until morning, and had given them explicit orders not to stir from the house. These orders were sufficient, I well knew, to ensure their immediate disappearance, one and all, as soon as my back was turned. I took from the scones 2 flamacs, and giving one to Amontillado, bowed him through several suites of rooms to the archway that led into the vaults. I passed down a long and winding staircase, requesting him to be cautious as he followed. We came at length to the foot of the descent, and stood together upon the damp ground of the catacombs of the Marz. The gait of my friend was unsteady, and the bells upon his cap jingled as he strode.
The pipe.
It's further on, said I. But observe the white web work, which gleams from these cavern walls. He turned towards me, and looked into my eaves with 2 filmy orbs, that distilled the rheum of intoxication.
Nitrate,
he said at length. Nitrate, I replied. How long have you had that cough? My poor friend, it is impossible to reply for many minutes.
It is nothing, he said at last.
Come, I said with decision, we will go back. Your health is precious. You are rich, respected, admired, beloved. You are happy as once I was. You are the man to be missed. For me it is no matter. We will go back. You will be ill, and I cannot be responsible. Besides, there is Lucrez.
Enough, he said. The cough is a mere nothing. It will not kill me, and I shall not die for a cough.
True, I replied. And indeed I had no intention of alarming you unnecessarily. But you should use all proper caution. A draught of this monarch will defend us from the damps. Here I knocked off the neck of a bottle which I drew from a long row of its fellows that lay upon the mould. Drink, I said, presenting him the wine. He raised it to his lips with a leer. He paused, and nodded to me familiar, while his bells jingled.
I drink, he said, to be buried that repose around us.
And I to your long life. He again took my arm, and we proceeded.
These vaults, he said, are extensive.
The Marz, I replied, were a great and numerous family.
I forget your arms.
A huge human foot adorned a field azure. The foot crushes a serpent rampant whose fangs are embedded in the heel.
And the motto?
Nime me impun lacaste.
Good, he said.
The wine sparkled in his eyes, and the bells jingled. My own fancy grew warm with the monarch. We had passed through long walls of piled skeletons, with casks and ponchons intermingling, into the utmost recesses of the catacombs. I paused again, and this time I made bold to seize Fortuna by the arm above the elbow. The nitrate, I said. See, it increases. It hangs like moss upon the vaults. We are below the river's bed. Drops of moisture trickle among the bones. Come, we will get you back ere it is too late. Your cough
is nothing, he said. Let's go on. But first, another draught of Modoc.
I broke and reached him a flagon of de Greve. He emptied it at a breath. His eyes flashed a fierce light. He laughed and threw the bottle upwards with a gesture I did not understand. I looked at him in surprise. He repeated the movement, a grotesque one.
You do not comprehend? He said.
Not I replied.
Then you are not of the Brotherhood.
How?
You are not of the Masons.
Yes, I said. Yes.
You? Impossible! A Mason?
A Mason, I replied.
A sign, he said. A sign!
It is this, I answered, producing from beneath the folds Mercuria a trowel.
You jest, he exclaimed, recoiling a few paces. But let us proceed to the Amontillado.
Be it so, I said, replacing the tool beneath the cloak, and again offering him my arm. He leaned upon it heavily. We continued our route in search of the Amontillado. We passed through a range of low arches, descended and passed, and descending again, arrived at a deep crypt, in which the foulness of the air caused our flamboyance rather to glow than flame. At the most remote end of the crypt, there appeared another less spacious. Its walls had been lined with human remains, piled to the vault overhead, in the fashion of the great catacombs of Paris. 3 sides of this interior crypt were still ornamented in this manner. From the 4th side, the bones had been thrown down, and lay precipitously upon the earth, forming at one point a mound of some size. Within the wall thus exposed by displacing of the bones, we perceived a still interior crypt or recess, in depth about 4 feet, and with 3, in height 6 or 7, it seemed to have been constructed for no special use within itself, but formed merely the interval between 2 of the colossal supports of the roof of the catacombs, and was backed by one of their surpassing walls of solid granite. It was in vain that Fortuna, uplifting his dull torch, endeavored to pry into the depth of the recess. Its tremulation of the feeble light did not enable us to see. Proceed, I said. Herein is the Amontillado.
As for little Craze, he is ignorous, interrupted my friend, as he stepped unsteadily forward,
while I followed immediately at his heels, in niche, and finding an instant, he had reached the extremity of the niche, and finding his progress rested by the rock, stood stupidly bewildered. A morn I had fettered him to granite. In its surface were 2 iron staples distant from each other about 2 feet horizontally. From one of these depended a short chain, from the other a padlock. Throwing the links about his waist, it was but the work of a few seconds to secure it. He was much too astounded to resist. Withdrawing the key, I stepped back from the recess. Pass your hand, I said, over the wall. You cannot help feeling the nitrate. Indeed, it is very damp. Once more, let me implore you to return. No? Then I must positively leave you. But I must first render you all the attentions in my power.
Amontillado!
Ejected my friend, not yet recovered from his astonishment. True, I replied, the Amontillado. As I said these words, I abused myself among the pile of bones of which I had before spoken. Throwing them aside, I soon uncovered a quantity of building stone and mortar. With these materials, and with the aid of my trowel, I began vigorously to wall up the entrance of the niche. I had scarcely laid the first tire of the monastery when I discovered that the intoxication of Fortuna had in great measure worn off. The earliest indication I had of this was a low moaning cry from the depth of the recess. It was not the cry of a drunken man. There was then a long and abstinent silence. I laid the second tire, and the third, and the fourth. Then I heard the fierce vibrations of the chain. The noise lasted for several minutes, during which I might have hearkened to it with more satisfaction. I ceased my labors and sat down upon the bones. When at last the clinking subsided, I resumed the trial, and finished without interruption the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh tier. The wall was now nearly upon a level with my breast. I again paused, and holding the flambeaux over the mason work, threw a few feeble rays upon the figure within. A succession of loud, shrill screams, bursting suddenly from the throat of the chained form, seemed to thrust me violently back. For a brief moment I hesitated. I trembled. Unsheathing my rapier, I began to grope with it about the recess. But the thought of an instant reassured me. I placed my hand upon the solid fabric of the catacombs and felt satisfied. I reapproached the wall, in reply to the yells of him who clamored. I re-echoed, I aided, I surpassed them in volume and in strength. I did this, and the clamor grew still. It was now midnight, and my task was drawn to a close. I had completed the 8th, the 9th, and the 10th tier. I had finished a portion of the last and the 11th. There remained but a single stone to be fitted and plastered in. I struggled with its weight. I placed it partially in its destined position. But now there came from the niche a low laugh that erected the hairs upon my head. It was succeeded by a sad voice, which I had difficulty in recognizing as the of the noble Fortuna. The voice said, "Ha! A very good joke indeed. An excellent jest. We'll have many a rich laugh as it as about the palazzo over our wine." "The Amontillado," I said. "Yes, the Amontillado, but it is not getting late. Will they not be waiting at the palazzo, the Lady Fortuna and the rest? Let us be gone." "Yes," I said, "let us be gone." "For the love of God, Monsieur." "Yes," I said, "for the love of God." But to these words I hearkened in vain for a reply. I grew impatient. I called aloud, "Fortuna!" No answer. I called again, "Fortuna!" No answer still. I thrust a torch to the remaining aperture and let it fall within. There came forth and returned only a jingling of bells. My heart grew sick. It was the dampness of the catacombs that made it so. I hesitated to make an end of my labor. I forced the last stone into position. I plastered it up. Against the new masonry, I re-erected the old rampart of bones. For the half of a century, no mortal has disturbed them. In pace rescuet.